Hello, learners. Today we start exploring the fascinating world of culture through its three key dimensions: cognitive, normative, and material. You might ask, what makes culture so complex and important? Well, think of culture as a giant puzzle with different pieces. These three dimensions are like individual pieces that, together, give us the full picture of how people make sense of their world, behave in social situations, and use materials to create their environment. Imagine you receive a phone call and recognize the ringtone as your own. That's cognition at work. Or picture yourself following certain rules at home or school without even thinking. Those are norms guiding your actions. And what about the tools you use daily, like your computer or the column design made with rice flour outside a house? That's the material aspect. By the end of this lecture, you will see how these aspects interact and sometimes create interesting challenges. So, get ready to dive into the dimensions of culture to understand our social life better. Let me start with a question for you. How do you think different dimensions of culture affect your daily life? Take 15 seconds to think. Great. Culture is all around us, influencing what we think, what we do, and the things we make. Now let's unpack each dimension step by step. Let's take a bird's eye view of the three dimensions of culture to understand their roles. First, the cognitive dimension is about how we learn to interpret information through our senses, seeing a cartoon of a politician, or recognizing the ring of a cell phone. It shapes how we give meaning to the world around us. Next, the normative dimension consists of all the rules and values that tell us what to do or not to do. These are the folkways and mores that guide daily behavior, like refusing to open somebody else's mail or following rituals after a death. Finally, the material dimension involves all the physical things and technologies that enable human activities. For example, designing patterns called column with rice flour or using the internet to chat. Without tools or materials, many social activities wouldn't be possible. Think about your own day and try to identify an example of each dimension in action. Ready? Pause for 20 seconds. Did you think of your mobile phone as material culture? Or maybe texting friends as a cognitive and material interaction? Excellent. These dimensions intertwine to create complex social experiences. Next, we will delve deeper into the cognitive aspects. Now let's explore the cognitive dimension where culture meets our mind. Cognition involves how we make sense of all that we hear, see, and experience. For example, recognizing a cartoon caricature or identifying your phone's ring is cognition in action. In literate societies, knowledge is often recorded in books, documents, and archives, passing cultural ideas across generations. In contrast, non-literate communities rely on oral traditions, stories, songs, and rituals memorized and performed. Have you heard of Walter Ong, the sociologist who studied orality and literacy? He found that only 78 of around 3,000 languages have written literature. Oral traditions often use repeated words and phrases to help people remember stories, and performances tend to engage the audience deeply. Think of Indian classical music students who are traditionally discouraged from writing down lessons, preferring to memorize them. This shows how cognition is culturally shaped. In today's world, with electronic media, instant internet access, and multiple media channels, cognitive culture is changing rapidly. For instance, how do you think your attention span is affected when you switch from reading books to scrolling social media? Pause for 25 seconds and reflect. How might new forms of media influence the way we think and learn? Interesting insights. New technologies change cognitive patterns by offering speed and variety of information, but they might also reduce deep concentration. This evolving cognitive culture is vital to study as it shapes how we interact with others and our world. Moving on to the normative dimension, which shapes our behavior through the social rules we learn and internalize. Norms include folkways like daily habits, mores, which are stronger moral rules, customs related to culture, and laws enforced by the state. We often follow norms automatically because of socialization, growing up learning what is expected. Every norm has sanctions, rewards for following them, and penalties for violation. For example, not opening someone else's letter is a norm. Breaching it would not just be rude, but socially condemned. Laws are the most formal type of norms. If you steal a gold necklace, you break private property law and can face jail after a fair trial. Contrast this with family norms. Maybe your family does not allow children outside after sundown, but this varies from one family to another. Pierre Bourdieu, the French sociologist, reminds us that norm understanding requires knowing the implicit rules in culture. For example, offering a gift back too quickly might seem like wanting to clear a debt rather than showing gratitude. Norms often differ by status and can reflect discrimination. Historical norms that prevented Dalits from drinking from the same water source as others or restricted women's movement in public showcase how power shapes normative culture. Pause and ponder. Can you think of a norm in your community that used to be strictly followed but has changed over time? Take 20 seconds. Wonderful reflections. Norms evolve, sometimes slowly, sometimes rapidly, impacting how societies change and develop fairness or inequality. Now let's look at the material dimension, the physical objects and technologies that surround us. Think about all the tools and machines you interact with daily. Your mobile phone, a refrigerator at home, or even the electric motor pumps farmers use in rural areas to irrigate crops. Material culture includes buildings, vehicles, instruments of production, and modes of communication. These materials increase our productivity and improve living standards. Take an urban area where ATMs and computers are common. Compare this with a village where transistor radios still play an important role. Each adapts technology suitable to its context. For material and non-material dimensions to work well, they must be integrated. But when technology advances faster than values and norms, culture lag happens. For example, widespread use of social media has surged ahead, but norms about privacy and online behavior are still catching up. Pause for reflection. Can you identify a new technology in your life that changed how you behave, but society hasn't fully adjusted its norms yet? Think for 20 seconds. Insightful. Culture lag can create conflicts and challenges, but also opportunities for new social norms to emerge. We have studied the cognitive, normative, and material dimensions separately, but remember, they never operate in isolation. They are deeply intertwined. For example, new technology, material, like smartphones, changes how we process information, cognitive, and influences new rules about what is appropriate to share online, normative. Sociologists examine how these dimensions interact to understand culture dynamics, how culture changes, adapts, or resists change. Take literacy. As more people learn to read cognitive, it affects norms related to privacy, knowledge sharing, and even laws protecting intellectual property. Pause and analyze. How might a rapid technological innovation cause a clash with existing social norms? Take 20 seconds. Excellent thinking. Rapid tech changes can lead to culture lag where old norms no longer fit new realities, causing social debates and the need for new rules. Let's dive into an interesting case study on how literacy and oral traditions shape culture, especially in the Indian context. Historically, literacy was available mainly to privileged groups. Many communities used oral traditions to preserve their culture, narratives, folklore, and instructions passed down orally. In many Indian rituals and festivals, there are specialists trained in memory and narration who perform and keep cultural knowledge alive without writing. Walter Ong, a famous sociologist, observed that oral cultures favor repetition to help memory and that their performances engage listeners actively. Contrast this with written text that can be read privately but may be less interactive. Now imagine what happens when literacy spreads. How does that change cognition, norms, and material culture? For example, education changes how people interpret the world, shifts social behavior, and leads to new technologies. Pause and reflect. How might electronic media further transform these oral and literate traditions? Take 25 seconds. Thoughtful reflections. Electronic media blend oral and written cultures with visual elements, creating dynamic new forms of cultural expression. Here's a thought-provoking example from sociological research. A vegetable seller once asked one, "Why do I need to learn the alphabet when I can mentally calculate what my customers owe me?" This simple question reminds us that cognitive skills are diverse. The seller's ability to calculate without writing shows literacy is not the only important skill. Sociologists emphasize the need to make education relevant to people's everyday realities. For some, practical numeracy is far more useful than reading and writing texts. This example illustrates how understanding cognition requires recognizing the social context and diverse ways people engage with knowledge. Think about your own educational experiences. Has there been a skill or knowledge important to your community that formal schooling does not address? Pause for 20 seconds. Great reflections. Education and cognitive culture should be inclusive and contextual to empower all social groups. Let's clarify norms and laws, two pillars regulating social behavior. Norms are unwritten social rules we internalize through socialization. They can differ between families, communities, or social classes. For instance, your family might have the norm that children must come home before sundown. This is specific and locally enforced through social expectations. Laws, on the other hand, are formal, codified rules set by the state that apply universally. Stealing a gold necklace is illegal everywhere and punishable by law. Violating norms usually leads to social sanctions such as stigma or ostracism, while breaking laws results in penalties like fines or imprisonment. Understanding these differences helps us analyze how social order is maintained through informal and formal mechanisms. Pause and consider. Can you think of a norm that became a law over time? Take 20 seconds. Thoughtful answer. Many social norms, like those related to child marriage, have eventually been codified into laws to protect rights and promote social justice. Pierre Bourdieu, the well-known French sociologist, taught us to be mindful of implicit norms, those unspoken rules embedded within culture. Take this example. If you want to thank someone, giving a return gift too quickly may be taken as trying to repay a debt rather than a friendly gesture. This subtlety is important. Norms are often socially negotiated depending on context and relationships. Moreover, dominant social groups set the dominant norms, which can lead to exclusion or discrimination. Historically, norms preventing Dalits from drinking from the same water sources or restricting women's mobility illustrate this power play. Understanding implicit norms helps us appreciate the complexity of social life and the challenges faced by marginalized groups. Pause for 20 seconds and reflect. Have you witnessed situations where actions were misunderstood because of implicit norms? Great awareness. Implicit norms influence social harmony and conflict, often operating beneath the surface of everyday life. Let's compare material culture in urban and rural settings. In cities, Widespread use of ATMs, computers, buses, refrigerators, and mobile phones is common. These technologies support complex daily lives and services. In contrast, rural areas rely on transistor radios for information and electric motor pumps to draw water for farming. These tools suit local needs and resource availability. Such diversity shows how material culture adapts to different environments while enhancing production and living standards. Imagine the impact of introducing smartphones in rural India. Access to banking, education, and health information revolutionize lifestyles. Pause and consider. How has technology changed your community's daily life in the last decade? Take 25 seconds. Thank you for sharing those reflections. Technology is a major driver of social change, influencing all dimensions of culture. Culture lag is a fascinating sociological concept that describes what happens when material culture, like new technology, changes faster than our values, norms, and understanding. For example, consider the rapid spread of mobile phones and social media. While most people adapt quickly to using these devices, society is still figuring out rules about privacy, responsible use, and cyberbullying. This lag between technology and norms can cause social conflicts, misunderstandings, and regulation challenges. Understanding culture lag helps policymakers, educators, and communities manage the pace and impact of change. Pause and think. Can you identify a recent technological adoption in your area that led to confusion or conflict due to lack of social norms? Take 20 seconds. Excellent observations. Culture lag is an ongoing process, reminding us that social change is complex and requires time for norms and cognition to catch up. Now that we know the three dimensions of culture, let's connect this understanding to today's world. Social media is a perfect example where cognition, processing information, norms, online etiquette, and material culture, apps, devices, interact. Think of issues like digital privacy or online bullying. These problems are not just technological, but involve understanding, behaviors, and social rules. When forming education programs or policies, recognizing cognitive diversity and cultural norms ensures they are relevant and effective. So, your sociological knowledge about culture dimensions equips you to interpret and engage with contemporary challenges thoughtfully. Pause for reflection. How do you experience cultural dimensions playing out in your use of social media? Take 25 seconds. Wonderful insights. This critical awareness empowers you to be an informed digital citizen, shaping positive social change. To sum up, culture is not just one thing but a blend of cognitive processes, social rules, and material creations. Each dimension offers powerful insights into how people understand the world, behave, and build their environment. Remember, these dimensions interact constantly, shaping how societies change and adapt. The pace of material advances can challenge norms leading to culture lag, while cognition evolves with technologies and education. Studying culture sociologically prepares you to face the complex realities of tradition and modernity, helping you appreciate diversity and social dynamics. I encourage you to observe your surroundings, your family, community, and virtual worlds through these dimensions to become more socially aware and engaged. Thank you for your attention and curiosity. Keep questioning and learning about the social world you are part of.